Little intro music. Now introducing your host, Jake Luffy. Harriet! Yeah! Okay, we're back. Okay, baby's asleep, baby's fed. I was talking about the trade market in our team. Or in our league. Allow me to elaborate. Bada boom. So, here we are. These are the 10. Oh, where'd they go? The 10 teams in our league. Right here. This is the rosters. So there's a couple of teams that are looking to acquire draft capital. Those are myself, Ray, Tom, and that's kind of it. I guess Jordan, but Jordan already acquired all the draft capital he's going to acquire. So it's really just myself, Ray, and Tom that have any interest in sort of like the lower round picks, the third round picks, the fourth round picks, blah, blah, blah. Now, Um, the teams that are interested in buying vets at the moment are you and Brett, I would guess, just because that's been kind of your MO. The guys interested in buying young players, Jordan, I think Rich and Ray. I'd even include myself. And, I feel like you two would also be, there's probably 5 teams interested in buying young players. I don't think Tom's opposed to it either, but I think his team is also kind of in a good place. It's pretty young already. It's in the middle of its competitive window. Um, Really, everyone's willing to buy a good young player. But of those teams I just highlighted, the teams that can actually afford to buy a good young player with draft capital, myself, Ray, Tom, and Jordan. So, outside of those 4 teams, though, who has good young players? If we just eliminate Peter and Jim from all trade considerations because apparently it's just not going to happen. Like I've made fair offers. I've offered to overpay a couple times. Um, they're just not interested. And I think Peter has just gotten an unrealistic expectation of what he can get for someone like Russell Wilson or Matthew Stafford right now. And so I feel like if he's not going to get a first for those two, he's willing to let them die on his team. And I don't know if that's the play. If I'm Peter, I'm probably selling off both Stafford and Wilson for like an early second, or at least a second and a second and maybe a 2 seconds. 2 seconds seems fair actually, like a 201 type of thing, or 2 seconds for just like a 2024 seconds would be good value for Stafford or Wilson. But Stafford might retire and Wilson might suck, and so I feel like you just kind of have to ride or die with those next year. Because who's going to buy them? Again, this isn't a. We're not trading with the community. We're trading with our league. Who's going to buy those guys in this league? Maybe you, because you're desperate for a quarterback, Eddie. Maybe Brett, because Brett's going to lose Tom Brady. Kyler Murray's going to be gone. He's really just going to be going with. If Brady retires, he's going into the season with Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, the Jones Bros. Kind of crossing his fingers and hope nothing bad happens. Um, so like I don't know. I think that there's not really a buyer. Like you think you're gonna get Jim to be able to buy Russell Wilson or Matthew Stafford? Is Rich a guy who's gonna buy a Russell Wilson or Matthew Stafford? No, Rich. I think Rich realizes his roster kind of stinks. Um, so I think that's kind of what you're looking at here. Now, as far as uh, kind of what you're looking to do at this point, I think, Eddie, this would be a great chance for you to start buying. Personally, Eddie, I believe you need to be purchasing those third round and those fourth round picks because at the moment, I mean, you're covered. You're good. So, like, if you want to run it back and see what you can do next year, I think, yeah, sure, go for it. But the problem with you not having any picks at all in the next 2 years is that when injuries happen, not if, it's a when, it is a when. When injuries happen, those picks afford you to be able to purchase those spot starting players. Por ejemplo, if a you know DeAndre Swift gets injured, well, you've got Jamal Williams, but like, all right, so better example, Ramondre Stevenson gets injured. Who is going to fill his spot? You're like, oh, well, Derrick Henry just fills the spot. Okay, well then who fills Derrick Henry's spot? Ah, well then, I've got Jamal Williams that can fill his spot. Okay, well, who fills Jamal Williams' spot? Because everyone gets pushed up. So you're not replacing Ramondre Stevenson with Derrick Henry. You're replacing Ramondre Stevenson with the next best player on your team. In that case, it might be someone like a Randall Cobb. That ain't good. Like, your team is decently deep, but Hopkins is getting old. You remember the way Julio Jones fell off? Hopkins starting to get those soft tissue injuries. He was kept out of a lot of the 2022 season or 2021 season with the hamstring. Mark Andrews, if Lamar Jackson leaves, maybe Mark Andrews is worthless. Maybe his production is basically he's just like a really expensive like Pat Fryermuth level of production. There is a world where your team sucks next year. I don't actually think that. I mean, I think you're guaranteed to be a playoff team. I should say that. Unless one of your two quarterbacks gets injured, you're guaranteed to be a playoff team. But that's kind of the path I see is you need to buy a quarterback. I think you could probably buy Russell Wilson or Matthew Stafford off of Peter. But again, it requires him to be reasonable. Is he going to be that? No. I know for a fact that Brett isn't going to sell any of his quarterbacks because he already realizes the pickle that he is in. Juan over here is kind of in a similar spot. Like, he's got Josh Allen, he's got Trevor Lawrence. Ryan's probably gone. Mills is probably gone. Garoppolo is honestly he's fucking useless even if he plays. Mariota lost his job. Like, he's got no one. He's got a bunch of dudes that play quarterback, but only two real starters. All right, I feel like I've rambled enough, and I'm literally just rambling. But my point is, you want to be able to have those third and fourth round picks so that you can buy spot starts as you need them. Now, here's when you don't need them. You don't need them in the early part of the season. If you think that like buying someone like a who was the guy for the Zonovan Knight, who had a couple good games here. If you think that buying someone like a Zonovan Knight is going to like put you over the hump and make you a playoff team, you're fucking wrong. If Zonovan Knight is what you need to make a playoff run, then you buy him in the playoffs. Buying him early as a spot starter isn't going to do you. Now, if you're like, man, I really need to win one of these next 3 games, buy him then. If you've done the math and you looked at the playoff picture and you're like, if I just win one of these next 3 games, I'm in. Send a fourth to Ray Mertz for Zonovan Knight. Maybe he accepts it. Send him a third. Send him a fourth and Fab. Send him a fourth plus like a Snoop Connor. Realistically, Snoop Connor didn't do shit for you this year, Eddie. I mean, he might do something next year, but like those are the kinds of things like get it done when you need it. Don't get it done beforehand. That's why you need to have those picks in the future is because it affords you to be able to kind of plug in guys as needed when you need them. So that's why if I were you, I'd be looking to every time I make a trade, try and be getting like, all right, this trade's pretty close. I need like a little bit something extra. Give me a fourth. That's why I always like to slap on those fourth rounders on top of my deal because I like to be the one who's holding all those fourth rounders. Next year, like when I'm planning on competing is 2025. I don't have any of those third and fourth round picks yet in 2025, but you can be damn sure I'm trying to get them. When I'm looking to compete in 2025, you're going to see me start buying everybody's third and fourth round picks in 2025 if I can. because that's going to allow me to compete. I really am rambling. It's real bad. Sorry, brother. All right. We need to talk about the upcoming rookies and what we can do in this rookie draft. So let's just jump into a mock draft. Y'all see this? Man, that is blurry as shit on my screen. I hope that's not as blurry for you guys as it is for me. Yeah, it's probably just as blurry for you as it is for me. Yikes, that's rough. All right. So let's see. We don't need the sounds. The 101 is absolutely Bijan Robinson. Unless he somehow slides into the second round, Jahmyr Gibbs gets taken over him, he has an abysmal combine, unless something really unexpected happens. Tears his ACL on his pro day, Bijan's the 101. And the reason is because there isn't a quarterback that screams fantasy stud. Bryce Young has got kind of like this Mahomes type archetype, except that he's probably like 5'10", 5'9". He's a little guy. And he doesn't have the Mahomes rocket arm. But the way that he runs around, scrambles, it just kind of like makes plays happen. It's not like Mahomes is out there rushing for 20 yards, but the way he just makes plays happen, that's kind of Bryce Young. CJ Stroud is kind of your more like, more kind of like a, it's a good way of saying it. Like he's kind of like a Justin Herbert, a guy who can run, doesn't have to. Elite arm talent, great accuracy, great arm strength. He currently doesn't have like as fast as a processing speed as Bryce Young. That's what all the scouts say. I don't know anything. I'm just regurgitating what all my favorite content creators say. So I would probably be going with, if in this 102 pick here, definitely going to be a quarterback. If Anthony Richardson has like top 20 draft capital, it'll probably be him just because of the fantasy ceiling that Anthony Richardson has, being a run-first quarterback. But assuming that he doesn't get taken in the first round, I'm probably going to go with the guy between Stroud and Young that I like their landing spot the most. So it'll probably be Stroud because everyone says Young's going to the Texans. Now here at the 103, Peter is up. And we saw Peters needs quarterbacks early, with both of his quarterbacks possibly going into the draft. When you're at the top of a draft in a Superflex league, you don't want to be at the top of the draft forever. And so, therefore, you're probably going to be going quarterback. This probably forces Peter to take Bryce Young. That said, I know for a fact Peter loves Anthony Richardson. And so I think even if Richardson's taken in the second round, there's a decent shot that he's just going, screw it, Rich. I mean, he passed Mahomes to take Herbert. Peter is a guy who takes the guys that he likes, regardless of where they are in the draft. He says, fuck value, fuck trading down. I don't do that shit. I don't make trades. I will cut my nose off to spite my face. So I could see him definitely going Anthony Richardson here. But in this, we're assuming that Anthony Richardson has like mid-second round draft capital. I don't even think Peter's that stupid. So we're going to give him Bryce Young here. Jordan's up at the 104. My lips are getting a little crusty crust. A little crusty crust. Let's see. The 104 is Jordo. I believe Jordan is pretty set at quarterback. And Jordan's got a fairly decent team. It was just kind of decimated by injuries. He's not super deep at his skill positions at wide receiver and running back. But, like, he's got Trey Lance, might lose his job, though. He's got Justin Fields. Honestly, could also end up with not his own team. Derek Carr. He's got three guys that have, like, shaky job security at the moment, to be honest. Because they're saying Justin Fields might get traded. Bears have the 101. They trade Justin Fields away, they grab Bryce Young, you know. Or they keep Justin Fields, get a haul for the 101, yada, yada. So I think here Jordan could go quarterback, but then again, Jordan's also got the 106. Jordan knows I don't like Will Levis. So if Will Levis gets top 10 draft capital like his projection, I could see Jordan going with a running back here, which leaves me at the 105. He knows me. I'm not taking Will Levis. Give me JSN. Jordo goes here, says, all right, give me the top 10 pick at Will Levis. That puts me on the clock at 107. And if A-Rich is... Sorry about that. We back. My headset every now and then will cut out if there hasn't been a sound played for long enough. And apparently that counted. So, where was I? Anthony Richardson is a potential here, but again, mid-second, no. I'm going to take a early round wide receiver over Anthony Richardson if he gets taken in the second. I think Jim is probably going to go just best player available. That said, he's a Notre Dame freak, so he's actually definitely going to take Zach Charbonnet there. There's no doubt in my mind. Which leaves me Jordan Addison. I'm probably going to pass on Anthony Richardson here mid-second. I'll take a tight end who's probably going top 15, which puts Tom on the clock. Tom's team is, honestly, it's just good. There's not a ton of weaknesses. He's got, let's see, Jackson, Tua. Again, there's so much potential quarterback turnover. Geno Smith might not be starting. Jameis Winston might not get his job back. Tua Tags might retire due to head injuries. Lamar Jackson might end up on a different team. Like, there's so much uncertainty this year with the quarterbacks. He's really only got like 3 wide receivers that he can like reliably start. So I definitely could see him going with a wideout here. Probably just the highest, the best draft capital / landing spot. We'll just assume that it's like Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers has been shooting up draft boards, which puts Mad Tom on the clock. Not Tom, actually called Rich. Rich is in desperate need for a quarterback. Desperate need for a quarterback. If I'm not mistaken, he's kind of got like Joe Burrow and basically no one else. Yeah, Joe Burrow, Zach Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Blaine Gabbert, Malik Willis. Literally needs a quarterback so bad. So does he reach for Anthony Richardson even with that mid-second round draft capital? It's kind of like, I pray that if you're rich, you're kind of like praying that Anthony Richardson gets a shot. Otherwise, this season, you're also kind of flushing this season down the toilet too. You know, like the dude desperately needs a second QB. So he also needs some good wide receivers or a good running back. I don't think you reach if you're rich. I don't think you're fixing this thing in one season. So if I'm you, I'm taking best player available. Let's say there was a 5th first-round wide receiver. You're taking that player here. Now, Peter here is all about wide receivers, but he needs running backs. His running back room is pretty slim, if you ask me. I believe he's got like Madison and Pollard, and that's kind of it. Rashad White's there. And yeah, it's just hideous after that. So he's got to go running back here, I would say. So we'll take Sean Tucker for Peter here. The 204, Jay Chal is probably just going to round out his positional needs here. I don't think anyone's taking A-Rich. Until here, I would consider it. But seeing who's at the 206, I believe this is Ray? No, this is Ray. 206. Oh, it's Juan. Juan at the 206. Does Juan need a QB? Sort of depth. So yeah, I'm probably just going to not risk it and just go A-Rich because, again, if he ends up like Jalen Hurts or he gets a shot, succeeds, his legs mean that he's going to be worth multiple firsts, probably 3 first-round picks if he hits. So it really just kind of becomes like, who do you like? And we're just going to start grabbing guys really quickly, not doing any player analysis here. This is just our league, what they need, what I see people doing. He's got a lot of running backs. I would imagine that Juan goes receiver, which puts me as running back, which means that Jim has like no running backs whatsoever. He got one in the first, and I do like him, so I'll probably grab another running back. Honestly, I think we're probably just going best player available for Tom. Myself, best player available. BPA, and then it's basically best, like, pick your guy after this. We're not going to be doing any sort of rookie analysis, and we're not going to be doing these 3rd and 4th rounds. So that's kind of how I would see a draft shaking out. Now, as far as moves to make, if I were one of these top contending teams here, what are some trades that I think would make sense mid-draft? I could see post-draft, I could see someone like Leonard Fournette's stock just absolutely plummet. I think if Lenny gets cut in this offseason and traded to a different team, I think Leonard Fournette is someone that could just absolutely tank. So, Eddie, if you're you, how do you get a deal done with someone like Rich? I think there's a couple of teams here that are fringe competitors that could be tricked into trying to jump the line. What I mean by that is, you take a team like Rich's team. Rich, if I was to make a deal with you, Rich, here's how I would do it. I would take a big package. I'd look at your roster and be like, all right, Rich needs like 1.5 quarterbacks. Rich needs, what? He's got Najee, Akers, Javonte Williams. Najee, Akers, Cam Akers, and Javonte Williams. So he's got 3 running backs, but Javonte Williams may not be there for the first part of the season. As far as wide receivers, he's got Michael Gallup, Calvin Ridley, Jameson Williams, Wan'Dale Robinson, sort of, Hunter Renfrow. That's it. God, that's rough. So his biggest areas of need in tight end, he needs a tight end. He needs tight end, he needs wide receivers, and he needs 1 quarterback. So if I'm going to make a trade with Rich and I want to take his picks away from him, put them on my team, I'm going to present Rich with a package that looks like it's going to make him a contender. I'm going to offer Rich like someone like from my team, it'd be like A.J. Brown and Drake London and like a Pat Freiermuth. And then like Deshaun Watson. So that's like 4 guys, 4 really good guys. A.J. Brown's probably a bit rich of what I would trade away. But let's use your team, Eddie. It'll be more interesting. For your team, you can't afford to give away quarterbacks. So you're not going to. But you could probably try to include a 3-way trade so that you get a quarterback to Rich. From me, you could probably get like Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, someone like that. Just, I don't know, something. If Carson Wentz has a starting job next year, Sam Darnold, same thing. Just like get a body onto Rich's team so he has someone to put in at quarterback. And then you could take like something like Lenny. Rich might like a DeAndre Swift. I'm not a huge Swift guy. I think there's a decent chance that he ends up getting replaced at some point, like once his rookie contract's up. I don't think Detroit loves him because of his durability issues. And maybe you want to get out of Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry dies. On your roster, you could offer him like Derrick Henry and then Stephon Diggs, because I think Diggs is running out of time to be elite now. Stephon Diggs, Derrick Henry, and like DeAndre Hopkins, and Deontay Johnson. Those four guys. You could get Rich's 224 firsts, this 202 second round pick, probably his 24 second, and maybe you get his 25 first. He's got 2 firsts in 2025. So like for those players, you could probably try and get those picks. Now like there's risk with buying those picks, Eddie. But here's the thing. You don't have to spend those picks on players in a rookie draft. If you don't like the risk, man, what you're buying is an asset that's going to accumulate in value. It's like buying gold. It's like buying bonds where it's not like you're buying into a stock market like you do on a player. Like, so like say if I were to like spend my picks and get somebody like a Deontay Johnson and Deontay Johnson goes out and tears his Achilles, fuck. I just flushed all those picks down the toilet because not only is he gone this year, he's probably not going to do anything the next year, and it might be 3 years before he does anything. And at that point, Deontay Johnson in 3 years, he's going to be 29 years old. Who do you think is going to want a 29-year-old wide receiver who hasn't done much in 3 years coming off of a torn Achilles? Fucking nobody. Fucking nobody. And that's not even the only way Deontay Johnson could lose value. But when you buy those picks cannot lose value. They just simply can't, because a pick can't tear his ACL. A pick can't get injured. A pick can't get traded to a bad team. A pick can't end up as a free agent and then go to the Jaguars. A pick can't end up as, the pick itself cannot lose value. In fact, it is one of the only things in Dynasty that is guaranteed. The only thing in Dynasty that is guaranteed to gain value. The closer it gets to the draft, the more people are going to want those picks. So Eddie, if you wanted to buy those picks for your aging vets, that is a good idea because you do not have to spend those picks. You can then turn around as the rookie draft's getting near. You can flip us like a single first. Here's a trade that I don't think makes a ton of sense, but I think people would be absolutely willing to do. I think you could take something like a I've been talking in the I think you could take something like the 109 if Jordan Addison is on the board, and you could absolutely trade Jordan Addison for someone like Chris Godwin. And I think that makes all the sense in the world. Go get a Chris Godwin. If you're trying to compete that year, fuck Jordan Addison. He's probably not going to like be the difference that puts you over the hump. But Chris Godwin might. Dude's an alpha. He gets unbelievable amount of targets. Now you've already got Chris Godwin, but like that's a trade that someone would be willing to make. Once players hit 26 years old, wide receivers hit 26 years old, running backs especially, or wide receivers hit 26 years old, no one fucking wants them. Nobody wants them. Now, that doesn't mean that it's like you're just getting all these things for free, because that means, remember, Eddie, no one wants them. Like, who's really going to want Chris Godwin off your team? If no one wanted him before, now that he gets older at the end of the season, are you going to be able to trade him? My opinion, yes. I think 26 is the perfect time to buy a wide receiver because they're literally entering the prime of their career. The prime years for wide receivers are 26, 27, 28. After that, it's all decline. 26, 27, 28. And I believe that you can still get a first-round pick for a 28-year-old wide receiver. So you could buy Chris Godwin for the 109, but you could also trade him later for a late first. And 109 is the second to latest first in our league. Like it's pretty easy. Like Mike Evans, you could not have. It'd be really difficult to get Mike Evans for less than a first. For example, this at the beginning of this year, you couldn't do it. At the end of this year, because of how shitty he was, you might be able to. But that's why I don't want to trade for a 28-year-old. I want to trade for a 26-year-old wide receiver. So I'm looking at like Terry McLaurin. Terry's a guy that I'd be looking to buy if I was you, and I needed a guy. Christian Kirk, 26. Who am I thinking of? Someone to keep your eye out for would be like where the fuck is he? Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's 25. Everyone thinks of him as this young wide receiver. If they don't get a quarterback that turns it around this year, you know what's going to happen to Michael Pittman? No one's going to want him. He's a great wide receiver too. Steady, reliable. No one wants him. And you could pick him up for a late first pretty easy. Probably even this year. You think someone's like, I think people are looking at 3 years of Michael Pittman. They're like, all right, I've seen what he can do. It's like barely over 1,000 yards, middling, not even sniffing double-digit touchdowns. Like, okay, yeah, I'd be fine. I'll re-roll Michael Pittman. Maybe Jordan Addison's a stud, and I think you could easily get Michael Pittman for a late first. And so these are the kinds of trades that you want to be doing. But if you can, send a late first for Michael Pittman and a fourth. Again, so that you can acquire those fourth-round assets, build out your portfolio, so when you need to make a spot start, you are able to. All right, that's all for this one. I am going to come back with another one immediately because I want to talk a little bit about roster construction.